Hi everyone, today I'm going to be going over the different types of cellular injuries. So starting with ischemic and hypoxic injuries, hypoxia is actually the leading cause of cellular injury, and this is caused by a lack of sufficient oxygen within the cells. Hypoxia itself is caused by decreased oxygen contents in the air, a loss of hemoglobin, decreased red blood cell production, and respiratory or cardiovascular disease. However, the most common cause of hypoxia is going to be ischemia. So moving on to the different types of hypoxia, hypoxemic hypoxia is when there is a decrease of pressure of oxygen in the alveoli, and this is a diffusion impairment. Ischemic hypoxia is when the tissue is not receiving enough oxygen, and a lot of the times this is caused by cardiac and vascular disorders. Anemic hypoxia is when the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood is reduced. And histotoxic hypoxia is when our cells are poisoned, so they're getting oxygen, they just can't use the oxygen that they're getting. The different effects of hypoxia will make our cells revert back to anaerobic metabolism. The pH will fall, which causes an accumulation of lactic acid inside of the cells. And there's reduced ATP, which leads to acute swelling. And this is going to make the sodium-potassium pump fail. And this will also cause vacuolization to occur. So our tissues all have different survival rates depending on how long they can last without oxygen. So the brain can only last 3 minutes. Our kidneys and liver can only last 15 to 20. Our skeletal muscle can last 60 to 90 minutes. Our vascular smooth muscle can last 24 to 72 hours. And our hair and nails can actually last days without any oxygen. So moving on to reperfusion injuries. These injuries are caused by the restoration of oxygen to the cell. And the different mechanisms include oxidative stress, increased intracellular calcium concentration, inflammation, and complement activation. So the one I'm mainly going to go over is oxidative stress, and this is caused by an imbalance between the production of reactive oxygen species and the ability of the body to counteract their harmful effects through neutralization by antioxidants. So the damaging effects of these free radicals, there's going to be an oxidation of cell components, inactivation of enzymes, alterations of ion pumps and transport mechanisms, activation of signal transduction pathways, damage to nucleotides that make up DNA, and there's going to be calcium released into the cytosol. So the next type of injury is chemical or toxic injury, and initially this is caused by the damage to or destruction of the plasma membrane. So depending on how much alcohol or ethanol is consumed, there's going to be acute effects as well as chronic effects. So the acute effects, alcohol is a CNS depressant, so it's going to affect our reticular activating system as well as our brainstem, and this is going to cause motor and intellectual dysfunction. This will also depress our medulla oblongata, which will decrease our respiratory rate. Acute use affects our liver by causing inflammation, depositions of fat, and it will increase the conversion of fatty acids to triglycerides. When it is used chronically, it's going to alter the folic acid homeostasis, which will then affect cell division, and it can cause hepatitis, cirrhosis, gastritis, and pancreatitis. So now unintentional and intentional injuries. So the blunt force injuries, these are going to be the result of application of mechanical energy which results in tearing, shearing, or crushing of tissues. And this is mostly caused by motor vehicle accidents and falls. So first, contusions are caused by bleeding into the skin or underlying tissues. Hematomas are caused by the collection of blood into soft tissues or enclosed spaces. And abrasions are scrapes, so it's the removal of superficial layers of skin. And lacerations are rips or tears. And these are caused when tensile strength of the skin or tissue is exceeded. And then a fracture is a broken bone. So sharp force injuries, an incision is a cut that's going to be longer than it is deep. A stab is the opposite, so it's deeper than it is long. And a puncture is going to have a sharp point instead of those sharp edges. So gunshot wounds, there's going to be a penetrating wound, which is when the bullet remains inside the body. A perforating wound is when the bullet exits the body. A contact range entrance wound is when you can see the muzzle imprinted onto the skin. An intermediate range entrance wound is when there is tattooing or stippling on the skin. An indeterminate range entrance is when there is no gunshot residue. And an exit wound has clean edges, and it can often be reapproximated to cover any defects. So asphyxial injuries, choking is the obstruction of internal pathways. A traumatic asphyxiation is caused by pressure on the chest, which is going to obstruct the airways. Strangulation is caused by compression of the blood vessels and airways. And chemical asphyxiation is when carbon dioxide prevents the oxygen from delivering to the tissues. And drowning is caused by hypoxemia from water or bronchospasms. Heat injuries are going to be caused by increased metabolism, denaturing, and coagulation of blood vessels. Cold injuries, the most common one is going to be frostbite, and this is caused by vasoconstriction and hypoxia. And electricity problems are caused by the current and the resistance to the current.